And roll here shortly. Let me just respond. Late start for us. We apologize for the tardiness. Yes, we are about to begin the I Love CVille show. I'm sorry for the late start. Technical difficulties. All right, guys, take a look at the screen for the headline. So the switching of the stream key, the third time worked there, J-Dubs? All right, so that's a good troubleshooting mechanism for future stream key connection difficulties. Take a look at the screen for today's headlines. Again, we apologize for the late start. We're getting about a 15-minute start. 15-minute delayed start today on the Monday edition of the I Love CVille show, which is unfortunate because we have quite a bit of news to get to. Tell your friends the show is on. Spread the gospel. Tell your friends the show is on today. Retweet the show, like the show, share the show. We had 3 teachers from Albemarle High School reach out to us about incidents from Friday, including one teacher punched and a second teacher slapped in the face. The teacher who was punched needed medical attention, and the teacher who was punched, they deemed the violence so severe that the Albemarle Police Department was called to the school and a police report was filed. We will talk about that today on the program as teachers reach out to us concerned of what is going on in the school, the largest school here in Central Virginia. J-Dubs, can you check LinkedIn, please? Actually, we're up and at 'em on LinkedIn. We'll talk about that today. We appreciate the teachers reaching out to us. We sincerely do. I think the teachers who watch this program realize that we stand with teachers, we back teachers, and we will utilize this platform to support them. I want to talk on today's program about City Council and Charlottesville City and the possibility of improving the city with a district situation of voting like Albemarle County has. Albemarle County votes 6 supervisors by 6 different districts into office, where City Council just takes the top vote getters. Would the city of Charlottesville be better off with a district system? This comes up from time to time. It's come up from time to time on the I Love CVille show, but it's come up yet again as citizens reach out to us feeling that they don't have an advocate that can go to bat for them. We'll talk about that on today's program. Is there a lack of advocacy in the city of Charlottesville because there is no district or ward system? I want to have that conversation today. Judah Wickhauer's got a couple of headlines he wants to comment about on today's program. Judah, we can rock and roll here when you're ready. Good Monday afternoon, guys. I'm Jerry Miller, and thank you kindly for joining us on the I Love CVille show. It's great to be with you on a glorious and gorgeous Monday afternoon in downtown Charlottesville. Take a look at the screen for today's headlines. It's a busy Monday, which is one of the reasons I'm disappointed with the late start. The late start today, nothing to do with neither Judah nor I. We had some technical difficulties, which we troubleshooted at about the 12:43 minute marker. 13 or 14 minutes behind our traditional 12:30 launch of our talk show. We apologize, and we thank you, viewers and listeners, for bearing with us on a show that is absolutely loaded with content. We have information that many of you will be hearing for the first time right here on the I Love CVille show. On Friday, we had 2 incidences of violence, 2 different how do I characterize this? A fight would indicate 2 parties, right? If a student sucker punches a teacher and a second student slaps another teacher in the face, I don't think those are fights, right? I would say those are attacks. Would you not say?
Yeah, I mean,
Those are not fights.
definitely not fights.
Those are attacks, right?
Fights would indicate that
Fights would indicate two parties are involved as opposed to one receiving the violence. We'll talk about that today. Derek Baum, we'll get to your comment in a matter of moments. I'll give you the snapshot of what happened, and we'll give you the cause and effect from the principal's office to the superintendent's office to how teachers are responding. On Friday, this past Friday, a student, a minor student, a student below 18, sucker punched, literally punched a female teacher. Also on Friday, a second incident, a teacher was slapped in the face by another student. Two separate incidences, two different teachers, two different students. We'll talk about that on today's program, with multiple teachers sending us the storyline and what happened, how the principal's office is responding, and what's next for teachers in the largest high school in Central Virginia. This is not a pretty situation, and it continues the violent trend of fights and attacks and security and safety concerns in area high schools. We'll talk about that today. I want to talk on today's program the district versus the at-large voting ecosystems we have in Albemarle and in Charlottesville. Albemarle County votes its supervisors by district. Charlottesville City votes its counselors, there goes Brian Haleska, by the who gets the most votes. Diantha McNeil, Jack Jewett District, Ned Galloway, Albemarle Rio District, Bela Pisto Kirtley, Rivanna District, Jim Andrews, Samuel Miller District, Mike Pruitt, Scottsville District, and Malik Whitehall District. Each of these 6 Albemarle County supervisors represents a district within the largest county in Central Virginia. Charlottesville City, it's just kind of like a free-for-all. The candidates that get the most votes, no matter where they live in the city, no matter the neighborhood, no matter their constituency, whoever gets the most votes gets put on the dais. We are hearing now more than ever that residents in the city, and unfortunately the residents that are reaching out to us in the city are those that are not of means, perhaps not as high in the socioeconomic totem pole. They say that council doesn't know what it's like to walk in their shoes on a day-to-day basis. And they point to a council that is made up of, how would you characterize it? White-collar professionals. Everyone on council, certainly 4 or 5 members on council, you would characterize as white-collar professionals. So I want to have the conversation today, would the city of Charlottesville be better off in a district or a ward system? I have arguments for both sides here. If you do get the district or ward system in the city of Charlottesville, the likelihood of getting career politicians is much higher. But if you do not have the district or ward system in the city of Charlottesville, you get what you have today, which is basically a council that is white collar and far from the financial margin. We'll talk about that on today's program. I want to highlight a number of items on today's show, including giving some positive attention to those who participated in the 10-miler on Saturday. It was a cold and rainy Saturday morning, and the volunteers and the runners of the 10-miler deserve some positive attention and some props on today's program. We'll weave Judah Wickhauer into the broadcast, the director and producer who's become a key member of this broadcasting family. Judah, first, the weekend, how was it?
Good. How was yours?
It's good. It was busy. Got my in-laws in town. Had our oldest had his 6th birthday this weekend.
Oh, congratulations.
A Nerf gun battle of intense proportions. Thank goodness we wear the goggles. A Nerf gun battle in a local gymnasium where we are shooting Nerf gun bullets at each other. In the end, it turned out to be parents versus kids.
Oh, man.
In this Nerf gun battle. in a capture the flag scenario, where if you get hit by the Nerf gun, by the pellet, you have to return to base and cannot move forward to capturing the flag unless you do 10 jumping jacks and return to base. I did capture the flag twice, running like a chicken with its head cut off away from 5 and 6 year olds with authority. We should get on track today. The news received, I let the teachers know that I was going to share it with you. We will respect their anonymity. How do you want to first characterize this news on a talk show that airs in the shadows of Thomas Jefferson University, less than 2 miles from Scott Stadium, the Rotunda, the John Paul Jones Arena, a block from the downtown mall, a block from the courthouses, and a hop, skip, and a jump from the Charlottesville Police Department? One teacher sucker punched on Friday to the point that she needed medical attention, punched by a minor in the school. Albemarle County Police called, a police report filed. A second incident involved a student slapping a teacher in the face. 2 very concerning turn of events on the same day last week, this past Friday.
Yeah, of course they deemed the punch severe. I think it's insane that I don't know how students get the idea in their head that anything even approaching this type of behavior is okay. And I'm glad that the police were brought into it and charges were filed. I think the biggest issue, especially with the information that we received, is that the principal seems to be implying that they don't have, like they never anticipated something like this could happen, and they're coming up with rules for how to deal with it. I mean, that's insanity. How is that even remotely possible?
We'll get some lower thirds on screen. Principal Bonham has his hands full, and on Friday, he really had his hands full with 2 incidents where he had to send multiple emails to his staff, and this is the first I think many of you in the community are hearing of this reporting. I would expect it's not to be the last. He sends an email to staff, which we have received, that says, "Staff, as promised," I'll read verbatim, "here's the start to a refocus on our behavioral plan as we wrap up the year. This is not all-inclusive, rather highlights many of the areas addressed recently. We will continue to have discussions on how to improve. 3 areas of focus as we enter the last 10 weeks of school. Focus area 1, student behavior, consequences, follow-up, and restoration. Focus area 2, hallway support, monitoring. And focus area 3, classroom expectations." He then continues to use what I would characterize as word salad. Protocols and keywords and hot words that you try to utilize to bring or to seem like you know what you're doing. What the emails to teachers seem to lack from me is human connection and empathy. Something along the lines of, "I'm sorry you are going through this. We find this devastating. We find this heartbreaking. None of our colleagues should put up with this. We understand your safety and your security is a concern, and it should be. I empathize with you." This email, which I will read verbatim from the principal, it was sent Friday at 5:14 p.m. "Dear AHS, Albemarle High School students and families, I wanted to make you aware of a situation that took place at Albemarle High School this morning. A teacher was redirecting a student who was in the hallway outside of the teacher's classroom. The student was not cooperating when the teacher approached to identify the student. Then the student punched her. Our admin and security teams were called and immediately arrived to intervene and take the student to the office. The teacher was tended to by our school nurse and received medical treatment. The conduct of the student was a severe violation of our school rules and policies." This is per the principal. "Law enforcement were contacted and were present to file a police report on the incident. The student, who is a minor, will face both school and criminal consequences due to these actions. In addition to this incident, We had another situation today where a student inappropriately touched a staff member in the face. I want to assure you that we take the safety and security of our students and staff seriously, and such incidents will not be tolerated in our school. If you have further questions, please contact me. Sincerely, Principal Bonham. We hear from the teachers that the air quotes inappropriately touching a staff member in the face was a slap in the face by a student to the teacher. I bring this to your attention, viewers and listeners, for a number of reasons. Reason number one, we as a community should know that this is happening in our schools. I was having a conversation this morning with a banker, and this particular banker let us know that there was a little bit of trouble at her respective school. I won't say which one. And she let me know that it took hours for the parents to be notified of said trouble. And that was one of the most concerning elements for her, the lack of notification for parents. It should be immediate notification for parents. Good or bad, parents deserve to know. Second, why are we talking about this on the show? Because it's a concerning trend. It's a concerning trend at both our areas, largest high schools, Albemarle and Charlottesville High School. We are not picking on Albemarle County High School. We are not picking on Charlottesville High School. However, the news that's being reported to us by teachers, by guidance counselors, by administrators are coming from these respective schools. That conversation is originating on this talk show, which is seen and heard by a lot of people, including local media, and then it makes its way into the legacy press, print, radio, and TV. A police report was filed. A minor was involved. This has been a tough year for the high school. This has been a tough year for students and a particularly tough year for teachers. We've had teachers on the talk show who have said students are running wild in hallways. They're stampeding. They're not listening. They're burying their heads in cell phones. They're not paying attention to class. And they're routinely utilizing four-letter words to let us know how they feel in front of their peers. Almost lawlessness. I expect better from all involved. And I understand we're dealing with teenagers whose emotions, whose levels of testosterone can run wild. Punching teachers in the face, there's no place for that.
Or slapping them.
Slapping them in the face.
There's no excuse for any of that. These are people who are transitioning into adulthood. Maybe not right away. You know, some of them have a few years before they get out of high school. But this should not be acceptable to anyone. And I'm baffled that the principal is talking about putting a plan in place to deal with this kind of behavior, as if they'd never imagined that as if something like this has never happened before. It seems to me that they just didn't have the willpower to do anything about it. Maybe. I mean, we've heard of these things happening and nothing being done. And
how would you characterize the principal's response to teachers? The second email we read with the protocols that were going to be put in place. I characterize it, and the principal's in a very tough spot as well. So I empathize for the position the principal is in. But the response to the teachers in the second email, the word salad with the protocols and how we're going to use this as a reset or a refocus.
Yeah.
I read that email and couldn't help but get significantly irritated. I got irritated because we're almost at the end of the school year. A reset or refocus at this point of the year is word salad. I got irritated by this email, the message from the principal at Albemarle High School, because it did not utilize words like, I'm sorry. I empathize. I sympathize. No one wants to see this. No one should go through it. I understand your safety and your security is a concern. I understand you feel the need to look over your shoulder. Keep your head on a swivel. I understand you're not paid enough. I understand that you have not gone through the training to deal with this. I understand that every day is a different day at your job, and you're dealing with crowded classrooms and crowded hallways. You're dealing with the distraction of cell phones. You're dealing with the desensitization of violence because of these cell phones. You're dealing with students who would rather video and social media publish the violence as opposed to intervening. You're dealing with the culture in 2024 where the students who commit the violence are turned into celebrities in the hallways by their peers because of social media, as opposed to stigmatized and ostracized. And that's wrong. What we got instead was a political message, one that was probably, and I can't speak for certain on this, everything else I've spoken on I can speak for certain, one that was probably created and published in conjunction with oversight and guidance from the superintendent's office. What's the role of the superintendent here when one of his teachers at his largest high school gets punched so hard she is sent to the nurse's office where she needs medical treatment? What's the role of the superintendent when one of his teachers gets punched so hard, not only sent to the nurse's office for medical treatment, but police called on site for a police report to be filed? What's the role for a superintendent when a second incident on the same day involves a teacher getting slapped in the face?
I believe the police should have been called for both of those.
100%. Completely agree with you.
I mean,
What determines the
can't-
difference with the police report?
You can't ignore violence. Because next time it could be a punch. I mean, what's the difference, really? You're right. What's the difference? But ultimately, it's violence. You're talking about kids. It's bad enough when kids are jumping each other or, starting fights or whatever, but believing that you can attack, I mean, maybe I'm not gonna pretend like there weren't kids like this when I was in high school. I'm sure there have been kids like this throughout every school's history, but I just don't understand the mindset that seems to think that attacking a fellow student or a teacher or how do you grow up thinking that's okay, or
This, the most concerning trend
or
for
that
me.
that's a valid response to whatever it is that they were, for whatever reason they were responding.
The most concerning trend to me is the violence on the teacher.
Yeah, but
The
it's
second most concerning trend for me is the culturally accepted amongst student bodies in high schools locally, this type of behavior, where the perpetrator is celebritized instead of villainized, where the perpetrator is beloved instead of disregarded. Don't want to speak for you growing up. Me growing up, you did this to a teacher. You weren't revered. You were ostracized.
I'm not sure that these two students. I don't think
They're
we know enough.
social media celebrities
You know that?
being talked about on social media for this. That's culturally inexplicable to me.
Yeah.
That's culturally inexplicable to me. Because that wasn't the way when I was growing up, when you were growing up. Taking someone that does that, sucker punch in particular, that requires a female teacher to get medical attention, and a police report filed. Me growing up, you growing up, I don't want to speak for you. Those kids would have been stigmatized by peers. Now they're celebritized. I don't understand that. And I would hope that we get a message from the superintendent about what's going on. This should come up at the next Albemarle County School Board meeting. In fact, the Albemarle County School Board should either call a press conference or a special meeting or some kind of investigation of its own. Parents deserve it, and damn well the teachers deserve it. We knew when the trouble was happening at Charlottesville High School last semester that the Charlottesville School Board was doing its own investigation. What is the Albemarle County School Board going to do now? They're elected to handle difficult situations like this. And let's see how local media reports this story. Legacy media, print, radio, television. Do I expect the minor to be doxxed? No. The minor's privacy, even though they did something terrible, should be respected. Both minors' privacies should be respected. But more information and more light should be shined on these two violent attacks. Anything you want to add before we close? And go on to the next topic.
If I was a teacher, I would want to know why the letter seems to be implying that there's nothing in place to deal with a student like this. If I were one of the teachers, involved in either of these two incidents, I would want to know that that those students were not coming back into my classroom. Maybe these teachers are different. Maybe I honestly don't know, but I wouldn't want to have to go into school the next day wondering when the next time this is going to happen because the student is right back in my class.
If you're one of those teachers involved, do you consider a lawsuit?
Yeah. I mean, I honestly...
If you're one of those teachers involved, do you take paid time off? If you're one of those teachers involved, do you even return to the profession? If you're one of those teachers involved, do you wish you had a union that had your back? If you're one of those teachers involved, have you contacted an attorney? If you're one of those teachers involved, do you press charges? Do you ask the police to go the entire way of the letter of the law? Those are questions that I would be asking. Fair questions. John Blair, watching the program, number 2 in the family, get his photo on screen. He says, thank you. He says, first, happy birthday to your son, Jerry. Thank you, John. He says, second, this is a really concerning story. We know that fewer and fewer people are going into teaching as a profession. Mm-hmm. If there is not swift and deterrent action, i.e. expulsion for these type of actions, then it only contributes to teacher shortages. Amen. 100%. Will the students be expelled? Will both students be expelled? Genuine question for you.
I'm not sure that. This is obviously something for the school to decide. But as I've said, I think it's insane that they don't already have. I'm surprised the proper reaction to actions like this is not already codified in the school rules. That's kind of scary.
Or is it codified in the school rules and they were just being ignored? The second email that the principal sent to staff is just an outline of word salad. I mean...
Yeah. I wasn't really sure what I was reading.
Second email, one of the teachers that sent us this email said, here's some documentation from the principal attempting to make things right. These are words from a teacher sent to us. She said, this documentation, here is some documentation from the principal attempting to make things right after 2 staff members were hit, 1 punch, 1 slap by students on Friday. It is so pathetic, and these measures should have been the most basic expectations already.
Exactly.
I hope these screenshots make it to you. If not, let me know. In a separate email, this was sent to us. Hi, Jerry, I wanted to make sure you saw this. Also, the second teacher was slapped, not just touched. One thing the teachers keep saying is, how many times do we have to hear this will not be tolerated, but then watch it be tolerated?
Yeah.
Teachers are heroes. Teachers are now underpaid, underappreciated, undervalued, overworked, and far from safe in one of the wealthiest counties in the Commonwealth of Virginia. 2024, ladies and gentlemen. Next topic, viewers and listeners, let us know your thoughts. Put the lower third on screen if you could. Seaville City better off by voting districts. Deep Throat, we get to your comments in a matter of moments. Viewers and listeners, let us know your thoughts on any topics, please. I'm hearing from a lot of viewers and listeners that they feel, these are viewers and listeners that live in the city of Charlottesville, they feel unrepresented by current local government. They say you take a look at council and you see 5 people, 4 of them white-collar professionals. Natalie Oshrin, the city councilor, is a weddings and events manager at Pippin Hill. Lloyd Snook owns a law firm with his better half. He's an attorney, a very good one. Brian Pinkston, middle upper management, University of Virginia, project manager, something of that ilk. Juan Diego Wade, I'm going to go to his LinkedIn so I have it exactly right. In fact, you might be able to find it on, in fact, I have it right here. I want to get the exact title. Social Services Career Center Coordinator, County of Albemarle, Virginia. Been in that role for 13 years and 3 months, according to his LinkedIn. Michael Payne, the stipend or the salary here into city council, his primary source of income. Holly Foster, I'll get to your comment in a matter of moments. The viewers and listeners that reach out to us say this: Charlottesville's more expensive than ever. They're raising the taxes at the same time our assessments have gone up. They're going to raise meals, lodging, and real estate tax rate. Same time, our credit card bills and our groceries are more expensive. Gas, I don't know if anyone's taken a look at gas recently. We're talking $3.55
Major
a gallon.
jump.
Significant jump, $3.55 a gallon. My in-laws are in town from Long Island. They said gas is more expensive here than there.
Ooh.
By a dime and change more expensive in Charlottesville. Multiple folks have confirmed that Charlottesville is the most expensive area in the Commonwealth to live, and people are quick to say, what about these cities in Northern Virginia? Well, the earning potential in Northern Virginia is higher than the earning potential in Charlottesville, which makes the cost of living greater in Charlottesville when compared to Northern Virginia.
Yeah.
And they said, what is local government doing for us to help us? We don't have advocacy. Many of the folks that are reaching out to us have common neighborhoods in common. We are hearing from folks in 10th and Page, and Rose Hill, Fifeville and Cherry, and Prospect. Those are the primary areas, the viewers and listeners that are reaching out to us, letting us know we don't have representation or advocacy on the dais. You get a number of emails like this over time, and you say, okay, this is a topic that should be considered. One longstanding citizen, she and her husband have been in their home for nearly 40 years, said, we don't have advocacy because our representation is not from the neighborhood. She didn't directly allude to the district or ward system, but she said our representation on council is not from our neighborhood. They're not one of us. So that percolated the idea district representation. And then I thought Albemarle County and Sean Tubbs today in a Charlottesville Community Substack mentioned something about this. So I'm like, well, this is serendipitous. Perhaps this is a topic we should cover on the show.
Would we say that Albemarle is largely the same? I mean, even though they
I
have...
wouldn't say that.
You wouldn't say that all of the counselors and
Supervisors.
supervisors in Albemarle are white collar?
Mike Pruitt's in law school. He doesn't have a job.
Okay.
I mean, he's in law school. He doesn't have a job. Ann Malik's retired.
But before she was retired. I mean, I get
Ned
it.
Galloway is searching for his new career as we speak.
Yeah, okay. It sounds like
He's no longer in the car business.
splitting hairs, though.
How so?
It's not. You're talking about people.
4 to 5 of city council are white collar professionals. Albemarle County Board of Supervisors, Mike Pruitt's a law school student. Supervisor Galloway is searching for the next professional chapter.
Okay,
Supervisor
well,
Malik is retired.
leaving whether or not they're white collar or not out of it, or retired, or looking for a job, would the people of 10th and Page or any other neighborhood say that they felt represented by Ann Malik or by Mike Pruitt?
I'd say Whitehall would say they feel represented by Ann Malik. I mean, I understand the point you're making. I understand the point you're making.
Yeah, I'm not trying to say that
I think the socioeconomic ladder of the delta in Albemarle is perhaps more narrow than the delta in the city.
that's fair.
City of Charlottesville, you have vast wealth, vast poverty. Albemarle County, I don't think that delta is as wide a margin. I'm not saying there's not poverty in Albemarle County and there's
Right.
not vast wealth in Albemarle County. But you have the much larger disparity with the haves and have-nots in the city. And the folks that are watching the program, they reach out to us and say, we don't have representation. And one particular person said, there's no one from the neighborhood that we can talk with, we can talk to. And that got me thinking about the ward system. This has come up, it's not the first time this has come up on the show.
Right.
We can talk pros and cons of this. I feel well versed in this topic. I'll go with the cons first. If you have a district or ward system, you basically could get what Ann Malik has become in the Whitehall district. Ann Malik in the Whitehall, is she on her 5th term?
I believe so.
Is it 5? These are 4-year terms. I'm going to go to her Civilpedia. Yeah, this is her 5th term.
Yeah.
That's 20 straight years she will serve on Albemarle County, one of 6, determining budget and other bureaucratic decision-making for the largest county in Central Virginia. That would happen in Charlottesville City. If you carved up Charlottesville City into 5 wards, Charlottesville City map, what would be the wards? Carve it up. Let's call up a map. It's a great question for John, for Deep Throat. You'd probably have one of your wards as what? Barracks Rugby as one? You got a pen and paper? Or we can
Yeah.
write these down? I'm going to get that whiteboard over there. Put me on studio camera if you could. I like the use of this whiteboard. I'm going to start rocking this whiteboard in the show. What would be your 5 wards in the city of Charlottesville? Oh, there's some Liza hair on the whiteboard. Holly Foster watching the program. If we get Holly Foster's photo on screen, the Queen of Henrico watching the show, she said those 2 students should be expelled once the investigation is complete. Until then, they should be confined in detention. The teacher should get lawyers and file a lawsuit. Hard to argue with anything she just said on the show, Holly Foster, the Queen of Henrico. I'm going to respond to that.
I definitely think the teacher should get lawyers and consider suing the families,
Suing the families.
as opposed to the student.
I don't think how are you going to sue the families? You would sue the school, not the families.
You think?
I don't think you could sue the families. How
I
are
don't
you
know
going to
about
sue? How are you going to sue the family of a 17-year-old doing something? How are you going to sue their families?
How are we going to sue the school over something they couldn't have
By not
prevented?
having the right security measures in place, by showing that there was a precedent, by showing that there was a history of this, and nothing was done to create a safer environment or to correct the problems. Suing the families wouldn't get you anywhere.
I think suing the school would get you less far than suing the family.
When the Newport News teacher was shot by
That was because the student should not have been able to bring a gun into the school in the first place.
the kindergartner
The
or first grader
school-
brought a gun into the school. People told the principal in the Newport News public school system that this kid may have had a gun. The principal pretty much ignored it, and then the student pulled out the gun, and if the teacher, who was from Greene County, did not use her hand to shield it, the bullet going through her hand, she may be dead right now.
Yeah.
That was a school lawsuit.
I get it. The last part's beside the point, but you made a great argument for why the school should have been sued for what happened there. Because
If you can make a legitimate argument, the same argument that this violence has been going on for years, and we've had teachers on the program explaining to us that students are stampeding in the hallway, running lawlessly around the hallway, violent attacks in halls, in schools, and in classrooms. In this particular school, good night, HE double hockey sticks. The Crozet Gazette wrote a huge front page cover story about this. This was fodder for the Allison Spillman, Dr. Meg Bryce at-large Albemarle County School Board race. Violence in the schools. You have a precedent of violence in this particular school, and if nothing has been done to circumvent said violence, then you have a foundation for a lawsuit. Suing a family that may
I'd say
have
it's
zero means.
very shaky ground.
Okay, instead your ground is sue a family that does not have much economic means, put a lawyer and spend hundreds of dollars an hour with a lawyer to go after a family that doesn't have any money?
Okay.
That's the alternative? I mean, people talk about lawsuits all the time. What happens when you sue somebody that's got no money? All you do is waste money on your lawyer.
I don't think either of these teachers would want to take their families for all they're worth. Neither of them would.
Then what's the point of suing? What would be the point of either of them suing?
In this case, it might be so that something is actually done about the violence in the school.
The lawsuit ain't going to do that.
Okay.
The lawsuit is strictly, I'm not trying to be argumentative with you. The lawsuit would be strictly compensatory.
I think you would have a hard time arguing to a judge that the school had any way of preventing either one of these attacks.
J-Dubs, we just had a teacher email us that said, what were her exact words? You read the email, so did I. Her exact words were, here's some documentation from the principal attempting to make things right after two staff members, one hit, one punch, one slap by students on Friday. It's so pathetic that these measures should have been the most basic expectations already. I hope these screenshots make it to you. She's alluding to the fact that this has been going on. The first email, she said, look at this. She literally says, one thing the teachers keep saying is, how many times do we have to hear this will not be tolerated, but then watch it be tolerated? She's straight up saying there's a history and a precedent. So if she's straight up saying this violence is happening over and over again, the administration is saying this will not be tolerated, but it is tolerated, that's a lawsuit.
Okay.
That's basically creating a world where there are no laws. That's what she's saying, and she wrote that to me and you. I mean, what else does she have?
I agree there should be consequences, but consequences would not necessarily have stopped a student from slapping a teacher, and consequences wouldn't necessarily have stopped a student from punching a teacher. I don't know that I agree with you that
if they had better security in play, if they had school resource officers.
How would they have stopped a student who was face-to-face with a teacher from throwing a punch?
That's not...
I get what you're saying, but it's not... I don't see how any of that would have made the slightest bit of difference.
It's lawlessness here.
That's fair, but
And the teachers are okay, we're getting deep in the weeds here. You don't sue families that have no money. Because if you sue families that have no money, all you're doing is spending money on a lawyer.
fair enough.
The money that there is to be gained, or anything that there is to be gained from a lawsuit, is the school and maybe its insurance policy that can pay you out. I don't know. We got off track. Janice Boyce Trevelyan, her photo on screen. If you want to see where you rank in the power polls, iloveseville.com/viewer and listener rankings. iloveseville.com/viewer rankings. iloveseville.com/viewer rankings. Janice Boyce Trevelyan, number 20 in the family. She says, like when you watch the show, JBT, if those students are special ed or IEP, they are protected. That's a big part of the problem. There are so many that are under these programs now. Spencer watching the program. Spencer in the family? Tom Stargell, the Golden Apple Award winner, we'll get to your comments. Let's see what he has to say. He was a teacher in these schools. Spencer first says, Jerry is right. Suing families that don't have any money is not going to get you anything. Suing the school will get you a payday, and that payday will lead to changes. It takes paydays and multiple paydays for schools to actually enact action. That's
All right, fair enough.
Tom Stargell, Golden Apple Award winner. Is he ranked in the family?
No.
T. Starge is not in there? All right, let's get T. Starge in the family. Tom Stargell is going to come in at 51 for Tommy Stargell. Didn't we hear the same rhetoric from the principal addressing the Crozet Gazette stories? Bingo. Exactly what I said. Also, didn't we hear how much better things are? I would bet not one thing to correct what we have seen over and over has been advocated by Haas or the school board. I want to see how Superintendent Haas and the Albemarle County School Board respond to this. This should be, parents that are listening to this show, you should go to the Albemarle County School Board meeting, the next one, and you should bring this up on the record to the school board and get them to comment on the record. Albemarle County Teacher Union should be responding to this on the record. On the record. They should be having conversations about this. Deep Throat offering some comments on wards and districting in the city. Curtis Shaver is as well. First, we'll get the Deep Throat on the schools. This is the issue at the heart of the Zwerner case. School is arguing that she can only go via workers' comp. Zwerner arguing gross negligence on part of the school. I promise you I'm going to get to the districts. Zwerner is the Greene County resident from the Newport News Elementary School that was shot by the 6-year-old. Mm-hmm. That teacher has a phenomenal case for a payday.
Oh, definitely.
Principal notified that the kid had a gun.
Yeah.
And nothing was done about it because it was the end of the day.
Doesn't matter why nothing was done about it.
But those were the words the principal used to another teacher. It's the end of the day. Go back to your classroom. Mm-hmm. Dude, teachers are superheroes. But with all these stories in the news, tell me why you're going to go get a master's in education, fall deep in debt, to work a job at the poverty line, to risk your security and your safety, to have an overcrowded classroom, students that don't pay attention to you, to cuss you out, pay attention to TikTok and Instagram, don't listen to the curriculum, get no support from your administration, no support from the front office, and basically become political pawns in school board races. That's 2024 Albemarle education. Explain that to me. School districts. Curtis Shaver watching the program. Get his photo on screen. I'm using my whiteboard, Judah. My white dry erase board. Curtis Shaver is, what is he ranked in the family? Number 31 in the family. He says Belmont should be its own district. I think it would be, Curtis Shaver, that would be a district. I think it would be Belmont, North Downtown, Woolen Mills, Hogwaller. That's a district. Belmont, North Downtown, Woolen Mills, Hogwaller. I think your second district, I got to write smaller here. This is not a large dry erase board. Your second district, what? Barracks Rugby, Judah? You looking at a Seville map?
Yeah.
Your third district, where's my Seville map? Close it out. What's your, oh, here it is. What's your third district?
And we only want 5?
5.
Wow.
Greenbrier?
Greenbrier, would that be?
Greenbrier, kind of your 29 North area. Greenbrier would be a district. Fry Springs could be a district. The problem with this ward system is you don't have much diversity here with these districts. Would you call Ridge Street maybe your most diverse? Maybe your advocacy district for socioeconomic, for those struggling socioeconomically, would be Fifeville, Ridge, Prospect. Fifeville, Ridge, Prospect. I mean, are those your districts right there? Belmont, North Downtown, Woollen Mills, Hogwaller 1, Barracks Rugby 2, Greenbrier 3, Fry Springs 4, Fifeville, Ridge, Prospect 5. Deep Throat makes a great point. Voting precedent holds that the districts need to have roughly equal population. Neil Williamson watching the program here. What would be the districts, Neil Williamson? I mean, I think that would be your, with that, and I'm open-minded to correction. Judah, you too as well, if you see anything I'm missing here. Belmont, North Downtown, Woollen Mills, Hogwaller, I would say that's pretty homogeneous. Barracks Rugby, very homogeneous. Greenbrier, very homogeneous. Fry Springs, a little bit of diversity in Fry Springs. Fifeville, Ridge, Prospect, many of the folks contacting us from the Fifeville, Ridge, Prospect, Star Hill. I'll throw Star Hill in there. Where does 10th and Page fall? Does 10th and Page fall in that district? And do we have balance by population? What's the population, City of Charlottesville, 45,000?
Yeah.
45,000? Why don't, for the sake of conversation, we call it 50G, so we would have to have 10,000 per district. Is that spreading out? Here's my white erase board here. If I got number 1, Belmont, North Downtown, Woollen Mills, Hogwaller, that should have roughly 10,000 population. Barracks Rugby, roughly 10,000 population. Greenbrier, roughly 10,000 population. Greenbrier, and then some. Greenbrier might be a little light. Fry Springs got density. And then number 5, Fifeville, Ridge, Prospect, Star Hill, 10th and Page. So the argument being made to me by viewers and listeners that if it was a ward or district system, the Fifeville, Ridge, Prospect, Star Hill, and 10th and Page, they would have a point of contact potentially for advocacy on their behalf. And right now, that advocacy on their behalf does not exist. Who are you going to go to? You're going to go book a $400,000 wedding at Pippin Hill and get a conversation with Natalie? You're going to commit a crime and have a conversation with Counselor Snook, Attorney Snook? You're going to try to do some engineering or some underground infrastructure with B. Pinks, with Brian Pinkston, and get some conversation with him? I mean, how you get advocacy? Talk about some job opportunities at the Social Services Center with the mayor? Your biggest advocate right now is probably Michael Payne, right?
Okay. You're saying that because
his primary source of income is the $18K from counselor position.
But that just happens to be the lay of the land in this particular council. That's not to say that the next council won't have all people that work full-time jobs or nobody that has a full-time job, right?
Bingo.
There's no particular, and How would
The immediate advocates in the most recent council that come to mind, two. Former Mayor Nikia Walker and former Councilor Dr. Wes Bellamy.
are you saying that they made themselves open to
Most specifically, former Mayor Nikia Walker.
made herself open to people bringing concerns to her?
Yes.
Okay.
She gets some shade on this show, but former Mayor Nikia Walker, big time advocate for the financial underdog, for the racially marginalized. Right?
Yeah, I'd say that's fair.
She deserves significant props for that. But for the most part, council, where is your advocacy? I've been here 25 years. Where's the advocacy been?
I mean, that's a decent question, but would splitting the neighborhoods of Charlottesville up into 5 wards provide that advocacy?
More so than most votes possible. Most votes possible. Charlottesville's getting gentrified left and right by increased taxes, increased assessments, increased real estate tax rates, by Northeasterners sprinting to SEVA with bags of money, by UVA expanding. We're becoming more homogenous. As the voter base becomes more homogenous, that voter base is going to vote folks that
Or like them?
are like them. And as that voter base votes folks into office that are like them, the small pocket that is not like them is not going to have representation.
That's fair, but as that pocket gets smaller, it's going to be less a part of any neighborhood or any ward system that gets created.
But should they be discounted just because the population's getting smaller?
I'm not saying that.
That's what you're alluding to.
No. I'm saying that as creating a ward system is not going to stop the gentrification, is not going to stop.
How do you know that? Creating a ward system, could you have somebody on the dais saying, hey, maybe we shouldn't do the tax rate. Maybe we should advertise the tax relief a little better. Maybe we shouldn't raise the real estate tax rate.
That might slow things. But
Who's
it's
been the largest
not gonna
advocate of...
stop them?
Who's been the largest voice against raising the meals tax?
I'm not 100% sure, but I think Payne.
Yeah, bingo. Well said. Exactly right. Why has Payne been the loudest voice against raising the meals tax?
At a guess, probably because he's closer to that. He's closer to that income level. To that, he certainly, I think, would like to be an advocate for the.
I'll say it too in a nutshell. Payne has been the loudest voice against raising the meals tax because he calls that tax the most regressive.
Yeah.
He says if you raise the real estate tax rate, at least we have tax relief. If you raise the lodging tax, it's affecting outsiders coming to Charlottesville. But everybody has to eat,
Yeah.
and there ain't no tax relief for eating. That's what he says.
Yeah,
Now, I use a
that's
little
fair.
bit of color and a little bit of flair, but that's what he's saying. You want to raise the tax rate on houses? We still got tax relief for the people that can't afford those taxes. You want to tax some people more on lodging? Who cares? They're not from here. But everybody's got to eat cheeseburgers, and everybody's got to eat ground beef, and everybody's got to eat vegetables, and everybody's got to eat everything. And if you tax them on the meals, it's going to sting everybody, and that's some...
Yes.
That's what he said. He was trying to be an advocate. But guess what happened? Guess what happened? He got outvoted
That could have happened anyway.
because the other 4 white-collar professionals.
But again,
Could have happened.
Having a ward system.
But how do we know?
Necessary.
How do we know?
You're right. How do we know?
How do we know someone from Fry Springs, which is a somewhat diverse neighborhood, couldn't have teamed up with somebody from the Fikeville Ridge, Prospect, Star Hill, and 10th Page district to voice and to work in cahoots against Greenbrier, Barracks Rugby, and Belmont, North Downtown, Willow Mills, Hogwaller? Right now, we don't got that.
Okay.
Neil Williamson says, president of the Free Enterprise Forum, perhaps 4 districts and an elected mayor at large. And he shares a link from the Free Enterprise Forum. Love the Free Enterprise Forum. Travis Hackworth, Waukegan Danville. Prior to 1963, Charlottesville was divided into 4 voting wards. After the 1963 annexation, it was divided into 8 precincts. Travis, I like when you watch the show. I would say, with confidence and conviction, the era of diversity in race and the era of diversity in wealth and the era of diversity in thought on council is being completely eviscerated or evaporated altogether. And it's because of many reasons. Like UVA expanding and attracting people back, hybrid remote work, and Charlottesville's a great place to live, and people wanting to move here. Cost of living increase. In April, we're going to know the new HUD median income. And we all know it's going to be higher than $123,300 per household, $123,300 per household, like it was in 2022. Do I think the ward system is a slam dunk, no-brainer idea? No. Because it'd be career politicians on council. And guys, you want to know something without naming any names? We've had some terrible counselors. We've had some great ones. We've had some mediocre ones, but we've had some terrible ones.
Why does the ward system of necessity lead to career politicians?
Because the career politician just needs to garner the vote of 10,000 people in one district. And it's much easier to garner the vote of 10,000 people than it is an entire city.
Gotcha.
And frankly, it's not even 10,000 people. These counselors are winning spots on dais with 6, 7, 8,000 votes. And that's across the city in totality. If you can win a spot on the dais with 6, 7, 8,000 votes, how many votes do you need in a ward? 6, 7, 800? People can garner 6 or 7 or 800 votes in a district and become a career politician and sit on that spot a la Ann Malik for 5 straight terms. And some of the ones we've had in the past, that's a scary proposition. And I'll leave it at that. Put it on a one-shot so I can see some of those headlines that you put on screen. And we're running a little late because we started a little late today, and we apologize for starting late on the Monday edition of the I Love CVille show. Had some technical difficulties, nothing tied to the illustrious and the esteemed Judah Wickower, but instead our proprietary software that sometimes bickers like parents. You wanted to give, okay, we got Yunkin, the 10-miler, and Charlottesville Business Broker. Dude, there's so many business opportunities for buying businesses out there right now. I got 5, literally right now, legitimate opportunities for local investors or entrepreneurs or families or 1 or 2 men or women shops to buy businesses in this town that are noteworthy. Sitting on my desk. We're in the business brokerage business. This is one of the key ways we do our living. Help folks buy and sell businesses in Central Virginia. And right now is as much opportunity I've seen in the business brokerage world as any. Charlottesville Business Brokers. Yunkin, your story, Judah Wickower.
Just a second. People will have to judge whether this is a good thing or bad thing. It seems on the face of it to be a good thing that people are pushing Yunkin to okay a prescription drug affordability board that I believe would have the power to set caps, and I think that's what it is. Review the cost of prescription drugs and establish maximum prices. I'm, I think I'm a bit torn.
You're torn on putting caps on
No.
prescription drugs that people need to live?
I'm not necessarily torn about that. What I was getting at is that I understand the argument about free markets. Drug companies have a right to make their money, right? But at the same time, when we're talking about the life of a loved one, because they can't afford a drug that could otherwise be made available, I think that's, I think at some point we have to look at ourselves and we have to come to grips with the fact that profit isn't the end all and be all. And I think our government is in the process of deciding how they go about dealing with these types of problems. And I think the fact that we're grappling with this issue is a good thing.
Keep going.
Keep going. I think this is one of the many things that we need to grapple with as a country. We have the world watching us. A lot of the world has already moved towards a more call it communist, call it socialist, call it whatever you want, but a lot of the world has moved towards systems where I think there's a lot more in the way of safety nets put in place for their citizenry. And I understand why, we live in a gigantic country, and some of these things are better decided by states. Some of them may be better decided by our overarching government.
I can't wait to get in here.
Of the matter is,
I can't wait to get in here.
we need to come to grips with where we stand on some of these issues, and I'm interested in what you have to say about it.
2 words for you. 2 words. You know what those 2 words are? 2. You ready?
I'm ready.
Martin Shkreli. You know who
Yeah.
Martin Shkreli is?
I do.
Tell me who Martin Shkreli is.
He bought, I know he bought a drug that was used for, was it
Hedge fund guy.
yeah, he was a hedge fund guy. That
2015.
he bought the,
Buys the manufacturing license to an anti-parasitic drug, a drug called Daraprim. This drug people need to live.
some people.
He raised the price of this drug 5,455%. 5,455% from $13.50 per pill to $750 a pill.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a free market guy. I'm a small business guy. Every day I have to wake up, figure out how we're going to make a living for our family. That's literally what we do. How are we going to make a living for you? How are we going to pay our suppliers? How are we going to pay our subcontractors? How are we going to pay our mortgage? How are we going to pay your mortgage? How are we going to feed our kids? Feed my... Literally every day I have to do this. It's not a 9 to 5. It ain't punching the clock. It's go, get up, 6 o'clock in the morning, figure out how to be opportunistic and be entrepreneurial and make a living. Martin Shkreli, he's a guy like that. But taking a drug and raising it 5,455% from $13.50 a pill to $7.50 a pill, when you know that these people need this pill to stay alive, that's criminal.
That's a perfect illustration. And I think,
That is absolutely criminal.
and I think that is the argument, that is the discussion that we need to have as a people and decide.
As a people,
Yes, we need to, because right now that's not criminal.
well, it's criminal for him.
Is that what he went to jail for?
Yeah. Shkreli was charged and convicted in federal court on 2 counts of securities fraud and 1 count of conspiracy for activity was unrelated to the Dapper Man case. He was sentenced to 7 years in prison and up to $7.4 million in fines.
Yeah. So what didn't have to do with the drug. And I'm not saying that, I don't necessarily believe that he should have gone to jail for what you were alleging, but I think we do need to decide how we react to something like
We
that.
need a complete revamp of healthcare. I pay out of pocket for my family of 4. It's catastrophic.
Yeah.
A complete revamp of what we got. Complete revamp of what we got.
I don't disagree with you.
And I'm not saying we need to go
frankly
as far as
somewhat
some of these
surprised.
other places that are in Europe, but a complete revamp. And Philip Dow makes this point. You guys are talking about how it pertains to drugs and healthcare. Food prices are getting to a point a lot of people can't afford to eat.
Yeah.
These are people giving up eating to buy their drugs. We wonder why in this country we have such divisiveness, and why in this country we are lacking so much of an identity, and why in this country we are at, I am 42 years old. And in my 42 years, and I don't profess to be being super in tune with things as an adolescent, but in my 42 years in this life, I have not seen this low level of nationalistic pride that I can ever remember.
Yeah.
Why are we lacking in nationalistic pride? Why are we divisive in culture and in thought? Why are we just not getting along?
Social media is a big part of it.
Social media, groceries, drugs, healthcare. Come on now. Crazy to think that some of these, it's a group of young Democrats that is pushing this on Youngkin's desk.
Mm-hmm. Amy Laufer, Cree Deeds, maybe not so young.
Call them Virginia Democrats. Cree's not young.
What's that?
Cree's not young. You're right. Maybe they're onto something there.
Yeah,
Maybe healthcare and groceries and drugs should just be a bipartisan issue.
it'd be nice if most of the issues were bipartisan.
It's the Monday edition, of the I Love Seville show. Before we go, we'll give some props to the Seville 10-miler runners. The volunteers and the runners, thousands of them in the rain.
Mm-hmm.
40-degree temperatures, running 10 miles around Charlottesville. Props and kudos to you.
Yeah,
Derek
major props.
Bond, his photo on screen, please. Mr. Bond, number 30 in the family. He says this: who in the last 20 years has been good on city council? You know what? We've had some good ones. I appreciate Mr. Bond's commentary and questions. This is a great question. I think Lloyd Snook has done a hell of a job righting the ship from the Nakaya Walker era. I think he's done a fantastic job. I think Holly Edwards, she did a fantastic job. Holly Edwards, when she was on council. I think Huja did a great job on council. I think there were some elements to Dave Norris that were solid on council. Any you want to add? I think Brian Pinkston is doing an okay job. Juan Diego Wade is trying. Any you want to throw in there? I think Heather Hill tried to do a good job on council, but she just got overwhelmed by her colleagues on the dais.
I think those are all fair. Do you think the ward system? You argue that the ward system would create career politicians, but is there a possibility that would also lead to a longer view, a longer view of what to do in Charlottesville, of what the...
You're talking institutional memory.
Yeah.
You're talking about someone that knows the ropes.
Not just
someone that's not going to spend 2 years of their first term learning the ropes and then 2 years trying to raise some money to get reelected.
Not just institutional memory, but also, somebody who has a plan. Somebody who has a plan that can and can see that plan through, and not just, oh, here's a good plan, we're going to start this plan, and then a few years later you've got an all new council and perhaps the
Absolutely,
old
I
plan
think.
gets ditched.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely. 100%. Absolutely.
And maybe, sometimes I think you just have to balance the good and the bad. If we stick it out with council the way it is now, then maybe there are just some things that are not going to work as well as a council that has its members made up from various wards.
John Blair, by law, the five districts have to be nearly equal in population. Additionally, given the black population, one of the districts would have to attempt to make a black majority district. Keep those principles in mind when you're trying to establish the 5 districts in the city. I
Yeah.
think that district is probably the 5th one we did: Fifeville, Ridge, Prospect, Star Hill, 10th, and Page.
Possibly. How long would that last, though? Again.
The way 10th and Page is going, not long.
Yeah.
And
Again.
your 5 districts perhaps are Belmont, North Downtown, Willard Mills, Hogwaller number 1, Barracks Rugby 2, Greenbrier, etc. 3, Fry Springs 4, Fifeville, Ridge, Prospect, Star Hill, 10th and Page 5. 10,000 per district spread across the board. Good conversation for the show. We started 15 minutes late. We'll start on time tomorrow. Jerry and Jerry shows at 10:15 a.m. tomorrow. The Jerry Ratcliffe and Jerry Miller show at 10:15 a.m. tomorrow. The I Love Seville show is at 12:30 p.m. And the word around the street, the scuttlebutt around the districts, the chitter-chatter around the wards, the conversation around the dais is the great Jared Deeney and sidekick Boo Beanie will be in the house this week. Just a from Judah. It's the Monday edition of the I Love Seville show. So long, everybody.